Out of nowhere on Monday, a perennial All-Pro and the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, requested a trade out of Cleveland, and absolutely the Chargers should be picking up the phone.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, and if you want to make sure you never miss the show, especially because we have Daiyan Henley coming on the show tomorrow, make sure to go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, the last time the Chargers decided to go try and trade for a big-time pass rusher, it worked out extremely well when they acquired Khalil Mack. Well, another superstar is on the market, and the Chargers definitely should be trying to get him in LA. And also, another guy is also going to be on the trade block, and that is a wide receiver that's already in LA, Cooper Kupp. And I'm going to tell you why I think the Chargers should stay away from Cooper Kupp. And is it time for Tuli Tuipulotu to take his mantle among the next star pass rushers?
It's a great question, and he shouldn't have the opportunity to do so, but today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. David, it is Buy or Sell Tuesday, and there's a ton for us to overreact about on this Tuesday because there's so much news coming out in the NFL world, but it starts with Myles Garrett, a surprise that we didn't necessarily see coming, but maybe we should have, because I don't blame him for doing it. But the buy or sell today from Big Oil is the Chargers should make a push to trade for Myles Garrett. So I'll start by saying the Browns GM, of course, is saying we're not trading him, right? Probably trying to recoup some of the leverage that they lost with Myles Garrett going public with this. And this is how star athletes get moved now. They make a mess, they force the hand of an organization, and they become available. So I'm not buying at all that he is not available. I do think he could potentially get traded. Maybe it's probable that he gets traded before the season, but buy it or sell it, David. The Chargers should make a push to go get a deal like this done for a true superstar defensive player.
Should the Chargers go out and try a trade for a guy who, if he retires right now, he's going to Canton, Ohio immediately as a first ballot Hall of Famer? Absolutely yes. Like, you look at his stats, it's unbelievable what Myles Garrett has done in the National Football League. Like 102.5 sacks, 116 tackles for loss, 7 straight seasons of 10 sacks or more, a 4-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, and of course the 2023 Defensive Player of the Year. Like I said, if he retires right now, he's already a Hall of Famer. And that's only in 8 seasons. He's 29 years old, coming off of a 14-sack season. Myles Garrett is still extremely impactful, and he made our left tackle, Rashawn Slater, who's an All-Pro, look very, very bad. So it just goes to show you, this guy has plenty of gas left in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely still at the height of his powers. The highest pass rush grade per PFF in the NFL. He had the highest pass rush win rate in the NFL, winning 23.1% of the time. Second place was Micah Parsons at 20%. He's 3% clear of the next closest defender, and this isn't a one-off. He's led 3 straight seasons. He's had the highest win rate amongst all edge rushers with at least 300 pass rushing snaps. He is as dominant as it gets because he can combine an unmatched physical profile, right? He is, people throw around athletic freak way too often. Athletic freak was made for someone like Myles Garrett.
Yeah, he's an Adonis for sure.
Look at what he was able to do to Rashawn Slater, not just this time, but when they've gone at it. Myles Garrett has given Rashawn Slater some of the worst reps of his NFL career, and we know how good Rashawn Slater is. 6-time two-time second-team All-Pro to go with another 4 first-team All-Pros with the edge rushers that are in the league, like Micah Parsons and TJ Watt and all of these other crazy good players, Max Crosby, that are out there already. Now it's about what it would cost, right? This guy doesn't want to stay around in Cleveland for another quarterback, finding that and another potential rebuild. But what would it actually take to get him? And I think it starts with 2 first-round picks. And the argument for the Chargers would be you're hopefully picking late in these first rounds. Obviously, this year you're 22. In years coming up, you're hoping you're in the mid-20s to the 30s, right? That's what the hope is. And there's a legitimate argument that all of these picks are going to be 20s and mid-20s potentially for the Chargers. But you go to a Khalil Mack trade, I think, is the closest thing you're going to find to this for someone still playing at the top of their game. And Khalil Mack was a little younger, so it's not oranges to oranges, right? He commanded 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick for Khalil Mack, a 2nd-round pick, and a 7th-round pick, right? So one of those is basically swapping a first for a second. It is 2 first-round picks, but also a 3rd and a 6th, which is really a pick swap from a 7 to a 6. So that's where it starts. It's going to cost you a pretty penny, and also he's not making very much right now. I'm sure the money will get moved around, but his base salary the next 2 years is under $2 million. I don't think that's what the Chargers would have to pay him. If they do bring him in, it's going to come with a re-up, right? He still has 2 years left on his contract, but it's going to come with a new deal, and that new deal is going to be $35+ million per year because Nick Bosa is the highest paid guy right now at $34 million. No way he's taking a cent less than that. He is going to have a gigantic hit in trade capital that you're going to have to spend for him, and also once you re-sign him to keep him around.
Yeah, absolutely will. I mean, it's gonna be a very substantial trade that you're gonna have to put together, and like you said, it's gonna be one of those sign and trade situations. Like you don't get a player of this caliber on your team without him buying into the vision. First and foremost, he wants to come to a team where he feels like he can win a championship. Like he's made a good amount of money already in his NFL career, but he's been stuck in Cleveland where they haven't won anything. And so he wants to make sure that he can believe in that vision that you are presenting to him, that he can go out there and compete for playoffs and go out and win a championship. I think the Chargers can make a compelling case. I mean, they have a very successful head coach that just got back to the NFL, that won 11 games, took his team to the playoffs in a situation where they had to manipulate the cap. Now they have a lot of money to where they can not only bring him in, but add other pieces around on the offense to make him feel like, hey, we're going to be able to put a team around you to give you that opportunity that you have so sorely been looking for throughout your NFL career.
Yeah, he says he wants to go to a Super Bowl contender. It's unclear whether he thinks the Chargers are in that mix. And I think if you're looking just obviously at the last few teams left in the playoffs, they would be on the outside looking in on that. And I think it's about what the sales job is for that. And I think for the Chargers, it's also just about if the timeline actually fits for them, because this is a move you make to push yourself over the top. You don't have any holes really, nothing that is a huge red flag, and adding Myles Garrett, sending away 2 first-round picks plus a couple of mid-round picks isn't going to kill you. If you saw the Bills making this move, if you saw a team like the Chiefs or the Eagles or the Lions making this move, you could say, okay, well, yeah, that's going to put them over the top. They don't have a lot of obvious flaws and obvious needs. They can make a move like this. For the Chargers, that's not necessarily the case. You need those picks with what you're at right now, and at least where you're at in the trajectory of you trying to build a sustainable winner under Jim Harbaugh, under Joe Ortiz. If you make a move like this, that speeds everything up. That's an all-in move. That's, hey, and it's not an all-in move in the sense that he's going to be around a while. He's not declining right now. He should still have 4 elite seasons plus left in him, yep. Right? But it does change kind of where you think you're at. You make this move, you're saying we want to contend in 2025. This is the window. We're going for it this year. And the Chargers are pretty far away from that. So a move like this would have to come with, like you're talking about, making other moves. Now, the only team, like the Chargers have this like 5th most cap space this year. They have the 2nd most cap space in 2026. They have the room to take on a contract like this, but it does change how you are configuring this, and it does change your timeline to where you have to make other kind of win now moves right now with Myles Garrett and with this core, and you have to say, hey, we're ready to compete right now, which I don't think the Chargers are contending right now for a Super Bowl, but that's what this offseason is about. Going from a good team where you can beat bad teams to going to a contending team where you can hang with the other best teams in the league, which you weren't able to do in 2024. This would be a huge step in the right direction. But that wasn't the only trade news that came out, because a Los Angeles wide receiver named Cooper Kupp is now available, and maybe he wants to stick around in LA. We're going to tell you, maybe hold off on a Cooper Kupp trade and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys that the big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. All you have to do with Prize Picks, pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. And for the big game, they're going to give you a freebie. Patrick Mahomes throwing more than 1 yard to win. That's one of your projections down already. That means you're halfway to winning. Then you could go with something else, and I'm going all Eagles, like Saquon Barkley rushing for more or less than 115.5 rushing yards, or Dallas Goedert getting more or less than 53.5 receiving yards. You hit on 2 of those, you win. You hit on 3 of those, you win even more. And always check out the promos that they have available. But download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. David, many days I think a Cooper Kupp trade, right, or him saying he's going to be traded, maybe that leads the show, especially if you're the Chargers and you need weapons like they obviously do, right? Which might make it seem a little interesting, kind of the way I think we're both feeling about a potential addition of Cooper Kupp and trading for Cooper Kupp. So what happened is unlike Myles Garrett, who requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, Cooper Kupp came out on Monday and said, hey, the Rams told me they're going to trade me. So opposite situations. He didn't really want to do it. It's kind of being forced on him. I guess good for the Rams for being upfront with him about it. But still, now Cooper Kupp is available. And this, obviously, a couple of years ago would be a much different conversation. But the buy or sell today, David, where things stand now is buy or sell. The Chargers should stay away from Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I think when you look at who Cooper Kupp is now as a player, he's a player that's missed 18 games over his last 3 seasons, dealing with ankle and hamstring injuries, and he's 31 years old. You know, hey, and we're 3 years removed from that magical 2021 season where he had 145 catches, 1,947 yards, 13.4 yards per carry. Excuse me, 13.4 yards per reception, and 16 touchdowns. I mean, that was truly, a tremendous Triple Crown season, like where he was one of the most dominant players in all of the National Football League. But, it's been a while since he's been there. And when you look at the whole body of work for Cooper Kupp, it's only 2 of his 8 seasons with 1,000+ receiving yards. And for me, at this point in time, I'm not looking for a weapon that's on the decline. And that just doesn't jive with what Joe Ortiz has said he is looking for. And I agree. I just think this is a player that the Chargers need to stay away from.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about what it would cost, right, like we talked about with Myles Garrett, this is going to come way, way cheaper. And the Rams have kind of been notorious for getting maybe less than they even should for some of the trades that they've sent out over the last few years. And the salary cap hit for you, and the base salary would only be $12.5 million in 2025, $14.9 million in 2026. If you look at the receivers that are making that, I mean, he's probably in the 20s as far as the highest paid receiver goes. You're not having to pay him that much. For me, it's more about the fit, because I don't necessarily think he's a good fit for Ladd McConkey, and I don't think the Chargers are going to make more than one big-time move for a weapon during this offseason. So if I'm only going to get one, I don't think I would take the chance on Cooper Kupp, who hasn't played more than 12 games since 2021, right? That big season. Since then, hasn't played more than 12 games. Missed 18 games over the last 3 seasons. And I also think if you're talking about the fit with Ladd McConkey played 70% of his snaps out of the slot last season. Cooper Kupp played 67, right? Both of those guys were in the top 15 of the percentage of routes they ran in the slot. They're 2 slot dominant receivers. And I think the other part of it is you could make it work, right? You could have 2 primarily slot guys. Both of those guys have the ability to play outside, but I think you're putting a lot of trust in your offensive coordinator at that point to find a way to make it work, even if the pieces don't necessarily fit. I don't have that faith in Greg Roman to take this chance, to take this specific risk. The other part of it is he was part of a factory, right? Like he had Sean McVay scheming him ways to be a triple crown wide receiver. And it's not to take away with what Cooper Kupp has been able to do. He's been awesome and so much better than anyone ever expected him to be. That season is better, one of the best NFL receiving seasons of all time he had in 2021. The problem is Puka Nacua came along as a 5th round pick, slid right into that role and has not looked back. And he's made him one of the best receivers, gave him the best rookie wide receiver season ever. I don't have that same faith in the Chargers offensive staff. I have that faith in Justin Herbert, but I just think that it's too much of a clunky fit. And especially if the Chargers running as much kind of big formations and things like that they want to run, if you're going to play Ladd McConkey the way you're going to play him, and he's, has to be on the field basically at all times for this offense, you need a big outside receiver that is the more prototypical X receiver that can do the things you need him to do on the outside to complement what Ladd McConkey did so exceptionally well as a rookie. So don't love the fit. It would be cheap. The money, the compensation for it doesn't bother me. It's more of the fit. And if you're going to make one big move, I think they should go elsewhere with it. But I came up with a buy or sell for today's show because of what Derwin James said on the Edge podcast for with Micah Parsons. And the buy or sell is this. Derwin James loves Justin Herbert more than Jim Harbaugh. David, buy or sell?
I love Derwin James, and I'm not gonna buy this one. I'm gonna sell it. I mean, I don't think anybody on earth besides Justin's parents love Justin Herbert more than Jim
maybe not
Harbaugh.
Even them.
Yeah, and maybe not even them. I mean, I don't know if his parents is going out there buying the same shoes that Justin's wearing just so that he can, match his quarterback, or trade any and every single gene that he has in his body for his. But no, I love what Derwin James had to say here. He knows that he's one of the vocal leaders and one of just leaders in the team, and what he says has weight, and people pay attention and they listen, and they're definitely hearing what he has to say, and he's hearing it. He's hearing the hate that Justin Herbert has had to absorb after what happened in Houston, and he knows that, hey, Justin's not capable of doing this all by himself. He's not Superman. He needs some support. So I absolutely love the fact that Derwin James is going out there and saying, hey, lay off my quarterback. He's going to show you how darn good he is when he gets the pieces that he needs.
Yeah, well, let me give exactly what he said. So he went on the Edge podcast, this is Micah Parsons podcast, and they basically got on the topic of getting recruiting wide receivers and recruiting help to the Chargers, and kind of, if he's trying to go out there and talk to T. Higgins and see if he wants to come out to LA. But then after he talked about that a little bit, he basically said, hold on, we need to stop. He said, can we please stop trying number 10? Stop disrespecting him. I promise you, I can't wait for y'all to see this next season. I know we are going to do what we do for y'all, and you'll get to see the real 10. He also said, hey, what's up, T Higgins, T, or any receiver out there? What's up? What's happening? Let's do it. That's his sales pitch, right? And I think Derwin James is a great recruiter for this team. I think you always want someone like a Derwin James to be out there advocating for your team and shouting it from the rooftops. Hey, we got something cooking here. Something special is going on in Los Angeles. Come be a part of it. And I think there's enough positives to take away from year one under Jim Harbaugh to sell that vision. And we talked about before how much of a better situation the Chargers are in this year to recruit players than they were last year, and they still got so many players to bank on them without the actual proof in the pudding and actually having an 11-win season. They were trying to do that off a 5-win season and saying, hey, I promise we're going to be a lot better. Getting better and being a playoff team and taking that leap from being a team that wins games in the playoffs isn't nearly as far of a gap as taking a 5-win team and turning that into an 11-win team. So I don't think that's a hard sell at all. But I do think that you need a Derwin James to go along with a personality type like a Justin Herbert, right? Justin Herbert's not going to be the one out here trying to recruit receivers, whether you want him to or not. Maybe there's an argument he should. But I think it also shows you that even though outside the building, everything is raining down on the Chargers, and especially Justin Herbert specifically because of that performance, and there's no defending that performance. But what this shows you, and if you watch the Micah Parsons podcast, The Edge, you see how much he believes it. Like when Derwin James talks about Justin Herbert, you can tell he knows he has one of the best in the league, and that the Chargers are going to be able to do special things with him. So although outside the building, it feels like the Chargers will never win a playoff game, and Justin Herbert's not the right quarterback to take them to the promised land, you can see that Derwin James doesn't believe that, and I think that is just a microcosm of what that locker room looks like on the inside. Yes, it might be kind of outside, hey, I don't know, maybe he's not the guy. Inside, there's no question to who will lead them to special things, and Derwin James, I love him for getting out there and shouting that from the rooftops, because somebody has to say it. When I say it, I look crazy. Hopefully you take Derwin James's word for it, that Justin Herbert is that guy, and much better things are to come. But we still have more to get into, including a buy or sell about Tuli Tuipulotu, who could be stepping into a much bigger role in 2025. Will this be his breakout season? We're going to get into that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Game Time, because if you're looking for tickets for your next big event, maybe last minute tickets to the big game next week, whether it's a concert, comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache, and that's why you need to use Game Time. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier, and let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals, so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now. I've loved it. David just went to a playoff game in Houston with Game Time Picks and got really, really sick tickets. I mean, there's still field level tickets available for the big game coming up if that's what you wanted to do for a really good deal. But the other great part about Game Time is you get the Game Time guarantee. If you find a better deal elsewhere, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. And what I love about it, all in pricing, so you know exactly what you're paying. No surprise fees at checkout if you toggle it. And also the panoramic view from your seat, so you know exactly what your experience is going to be like. All you have to do is get ready to make your next event even better. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, use that code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We still have more great buy or sells to get into on this Tuesday, and we didn't necessarily expect this trade news to be bogging up all of our buy or sell time, but we appreciate everyone who hit us up at Locked On LAC to give us your buy or sell. Anyone who called into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 to give us your buy or sell, and all the everydayers that continue to check in with us as the only daily Chargers podcast during the offseason and during the regular season. We appreciate you guys, and we thank you for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL. 2 shows a day where you can keep up with everything going on throughout the league with Tyler the Madman Rowan and his show, and my guy Tony Wiggins, as they bring on the people who cover their teams every day on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, this is a good buy or sell we have here from Jackson, who says, buy or sell, next season will be Tuli Tuipulotu's breakout season. After having 2 seasons with promising flashes, more snap counts will prove Tuli is a rising star. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it with the caveat that he gets better at reducing his missed tackler percentage. And that's one of the things that I've been looking at. I mean, when you look at the stats and when you look at kind of what Tuli, has been able to provide in his career, I feel like he's been a very good edge rusher. I feel like he's been a very, very physical edge setter in the run game, but he does miss a lot of tackles. And for him to make that next step, that next leap, to be, next guy that breaks out on this defense, he has to make sure that he secures those tackles on a more regular basis. But I do like the maturation process that he has shown through the first 2 years, waiting patiently for his opportunity to, be one of those main guys out on the edge. And hopefully in year 3, he gets more of an opportunity to show that.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because obviously the Chargers had Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack both on snap counts this year, and Tuli got maybe a bigger opportunity than we thought with both of those guys being available for some of those games, but it definitely hindered, what his production and the consistency he could have, I think, at least a little bit. I do think the big thing is the missed tackles, and I think part of that is really short arms, right? Measured at 32.25-inch arms coming out. That's not huge for an edge rusher by any means, and that's part of the problem. But 31% of his tackles this year, up from 21% of his tackles in 2023. So it got a lot worse, and I think where it really hurt him was the run defense grade. His ability to set the edge, set a physical edge, and lock down that in the running game is already could be one of the elites in the NFL. The problem is this year he just missed way too many tackles, so his run defense grade wasn't even good. Because if you're missing tackles, even if you're setting the edge, even if you're putting a tight end into the dirt, it doesn't matter, man, if you can't make the play. So I think it's about for him, can he still be that guy and look like a rising star if he tries to tone back some of, his motor, which is really the only reason that he gets a lot of these sacks. Like, a lot of these sacks are effort sacks. He's a high effort player. But when you play 110% speed at all times and you're playing with your hair on fire, we saw what we really knocked him for in college, which he had the most sacks in the NCAA, and it felt like he could have had 8 more. That's going to be the thing with him. The other part of it is he has to keep the production going throughout the season. His rookie year, we kind of chalked it up to, hey, he hit that rookie wall. This is more games than he's ever played. The problem is the last couple of seasons now, towards the end of the season, he kind of disappears a little bit. This last year, only 1.5 sacks over his final 7 games. That's not rising star production. And obviously he's combating, 2 really, really good players there as well with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. In his rookie season, he only had half a sack down the final 9 games of 2023.
Yeah.
It has to be there throughout the season. And I think the hard thing is, even though Tuli led the Chargers in sacks this year, 7 sacks came in a 4-game stretch. So in that 4-game stretch, you see what the potential is. He absolutely could be a rising star. But the problem is that's really the only time we've seen him hit that level. And it's 4 out of, the 34 games that he's been available to play in. So it has to be more consistent. You see the potential is there. I think, he can get there, but a lot of it's going to have to do with him and how he kind of adjusts and evolves, because you can't miss that many tackles and you have to be productive throughout the season. Let's get to this next buy or sell from Afri here. We're changing up a Chargers mailbag question into a buy or sell because we thought it would be a good one, which is this: buy or sell Daiyan Henley, future recurring guest of the Locked On Chargers podcast, will be an all-pro linebacker in 2 years or less. Buy or sell?
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. And the reason why is because I feel like Daiyan has a full, complete skill set at the linebacker position. Like, anything that you need him to do, if you need him to go out there and get you 15 tackles in a game, he can do it. If you need him to go out there and lock up your that number 1 tight end on the other side, he can do it as a linebacker, and actually do it at a very, very high level. He can rush the passer. He is a true stuff the stat sheet type of linebacker. And, he played most of this season on a bad shoulder that he just had surgery for. So, I think the sky is the absolute limit for Daiyan Henley. I love his athleticism. I love his personality. I love, how much he loves the Chargers. And I think, he is definitely in line to become that next great breakout all-pro linebacker in the NFL.
And it's crazy how close he already is, because there's 6 linebackers named to the first and second team all-pro list. Zach Bond, Roquan Smith, Fred Warner on the first team, Bobby Wagner, Zaire Franklin, and Frankie Louvu on the second team. Daiyan Henley was tied for 7th. He was the next guy. He was 1 slot away.
Right
his
there.
first season playing, right?
Yeah.
He was tied with Levante David. They both had the same amount of votes, same amount of first place or first team votes. He's right there already, and he's only played 1 season. All of those other guys on the list have multiple years of starting experience, and you should be better if you have a fully repaired labrum. That would also help. Yeah. I also think it's also about the elder statesmen that'll be leaving this list. Like, Bobby Wagner's not going to be able to keep it up forever. Levante David not going to be able to keep it up forever. Both of those guys are in their mid-30s and could be leaving this list soon, right? So that's going to open up potential opportunities for him. And like you said, just a well-rounded player, can do everything well. Already one of the elite coverage linebackers in the NFL in his first season, and I think plenty of reason to think that it'll keep improving. Now, what Athir has to say might be a little too far.
Daniel, David, this is Athir. Bio, Sell Tuesday, and overreaction. Daiyan Harris, Junior Copeland, will be the top dual linebacker in the NFL, will lead to the Chargers' top 5 defense. Destination? San Francisco. I'm buying it. What are you going to say, my boy? I cannot wait to hear Daniel. Love you. Ha ha ha.
Ha ha ha, indeed, Athir. I love Daiyan Henley. I'm selling this because of the uncertainty around Junior Colson, because I just don't know how you could have that much faith in the duo together as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the situation where Junior Colson has not even really been able to show us his full, form because he's dealt with a lot of injuries and also dealt with, trying to find that transition to the NFL game. And we've seen this a lot. We've seen this with, Kaiser White. We've seen it with Drew Tranquil. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for those linebackers to really find their stride at the NFL level. I think I would like to see what Junior Colson will look like with a full offseason program. And I think that'll definitely help him. But I'm not ready to sit here and say they're going to be the top linebacker duo in the NFL. I think we're not there.
Yeah, and there's several others you could look at and say, it's going to be hard to pass these ones. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean in Philadelphia this year for sure. I mean, you look at Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. Like some of those, multiple guys in both those duos are going to be free agents. So those could get split up. There's some other good ones out there, but it's not that crazy. It's not like there's a bunch of elite duos in the NFL right now. It's just the total uncertainty of Junior Colson. And unlike Daiyan Henley, we got to see him play over 200 snaps. But also unlike Daiyan Henley, it wasn't at the same level that Daiyan Henley was playing at that. So we've talked about it before. Linebackers, tough. I think the game will translate. If he was playing at the level we saw him at Michigan, they absolutely could be the best linebacker duo in the NFL next year. We just don't know how long it's going to take for that to click. And that's one of the things I can't wait to talk about with Daiyan tomorrow is just like, hey, what did you see from Daiyan Henley or from Junior Colson? How much of an impact, or an improvement do you feel like you had going into year two with the experience of year one under your belt? How big of a leap do you think Junior Colson can make next year? Because they fit next to each other. The guy that was the, best linebacker prospect coming out of his draft class in Junior Colson, that Mike linebacker playing next to Daiyan Henley is a match made in heaven. How long will it take for him to get there? And I'm just not fully convinced or even think it's fair to put the pressure on him that he's going to be that guy in 2025. Will he get there? If I had to bet on it, I'd say he will. I think we're going to see much better football from him. But he's not there yet, and it's unclear how much he can improve. Navarro Bowman, obviously a linebacker whisperer, and I can't wait to ask Daiyan about him again tomorrow too. But it's just too much of a gap from where we saw Junior Colson at and where he would need to be to make that buy or sell something I would buy a Thier. But I love you for calling it in. And thank you to everyone who checked out today's show and contributed with your buy or sells at Locked On LAC or calling into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, because we continue our tier of great off-season guests. We had Tony Jefferson last week. Tomorrow, God willing, Daiyan Henley will be joining the program for the second time, and hopefully this time Morgan Fox won't be over his shoulder talking over him as much as we like Morgan Fox. But make sure you guys don't miss that because it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, you can find us wherever you get your podcast from and on YouTube, but you can also find it on all of our social media. We'll put it out on Twitter at Locked On LAC, on my Twitter at Dan Talk Sports, and David at Dro Talk SD, on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. So make sure your notifications are on because you're not going to want to miss tomorrow's show with Daiyan Henley. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.